Hi, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and today I am working through Felicity Jane's newest kit, Krystal. Now, whenever I get my Felicity Jane subscription, I always save this branding paper. It comes in the 12 by 12 paper pack each month, and it shows what papers are in that kit this month, but I find it best to use for my Bible journaling itself. I like it because the patterns are shrunk down, so you can see more of the pattern on each little piece, and I think it just adds a big pop of color to your page. I actually find that I use this little strip of paper more than the 12 by 12 papers themselves. Now today I am journaling about the Latin phrase Coram Deo. Coram Deo means to live one's life in the presence of God, under the authority of God, and to the glory of God. I paired this phrase with a verse from Colossians 1:17 that says, "And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together." Now, as you can see here, I've started placing some of my page together. I actually really enjoy working with Felicity Jane products because they're predictable, you know what's going to come, and that's perfect when you just have a little bit of time to Bible journal. I often reach for their florals and use that branding strip and also letters that come in the monthly kit. Now I fed that piece of paper through my typewriter so I could get the definition down, and then I'm just adding my title now. I have a little bit of trouble with getting the spacing right on this title, but Felicity Jane stickers are nice because they don't pull up the paper when you take them off the page. Under my left hand is a piece of ephemera that I made. I just had some mixed media paper laying around, and so I ended up stamping on it with some Holtz stamps, and then I fed that through my new Heidi Swapp Minc machine. So it is gold foiled. It looks really cool, although you can't really see from this angle, but I am loving my Minc machine. Now my Minc machine did come defective. It is not working properly. I think maybe it happened during shipping. So American Crafts messaged me and said that they will be sending me a new one. So once I get that new one, which could be a couple weeks, I will definitely be making a YouTube video on it. I grabbed these post-it notes that came with the kit. I really wanted to bring that black from the title down, and so I love the buffalo check look, and layering is always my thing. So I ended up putting that behind the little piece of ephemera that I made. And then I grabbed this die cut that came with the kit as well. It says "Finding Joy in My Journey." I just took out the "in my journey" part because it is true that I want to find joy in my journey, but more so I want to find joy in living in the presence of God and under the authority of Him. And so I wanted to remember that. Last year, my word of the year was actually joy, and it was a really hard word to pick last year. We didn't know what 2020 was going to bring. And so I want to carry that word over to this year. Not because I think this year will be any easier for me, because it might be harder. But I want to live in that joy under Christ. I want to live in the presence of God, under the authority of God, and to the glory of God. I want to search for that joy, not in myself, but in Christ. I grabbed this greenery stamp that comes with the kit this month. It actually has a little vase to go with it, but I'm just stamping it by itself. And I don't know why, but I've been loving the greenery pieces and die cuts lately. I don't know if it's because spring is coming or I'm hoping it's coming, but I just like to fill in the little empty spaces with some greenery. So I'm going to do that today. I'm grabbing my Distress Oxide in the bundled sage color. I'm just stamping it off on some paper first because it hasn't been used before, this stamp, and so I want to make sure it's primed and ready. Now, usually I stamp with my VersaFine ink. I just love the ink so much that usually I stamp with that and then I watercolor in with my Distress Oxides instead. But today I am just grabbing the Distress Oxide colors, and they actually work pretty well. Now, usually I don't use that because they don't leave the greatest impressions like the VersaFine ink does. The VersaFine just gives every line and every detail, but since the stamp doesn't have much detail, it works really well with the Distress Oxides, and I think I might start using them more to stamp with. Now, as you can see here, I did make a little oops. I stamped it, and then when I put that paper back down, you couldn't really see it. So I ended up stamping it again, and you can see that actually happens multiple times on this page, and I just add a little bit more greenery to everything because with the one little stem, it looks a little lost, like maybe it should be there, maybe it shouldn't. So as you can see here, I'm going to start adding more greenery pieces to this page. So I used to be a really big perfectionist on getting that perfect stamped look, but I've kind of let that go. Not that it still doesn't bother me, but I've learned how to deal with those big uh-ohs. Like, what if I don't stamp it correctly? Well, if the whole thing doesn't come out, then you can just go in with a water brush and color it in with some distress oxides in the same color. Or what if you cover it up completely with the paper that you were supposed to put down? Well, just stamp it again, because that's what happened this time multiple times. So once you know how to combat that kind of, well, this is wrong, well, how do I fix it? So once you learn how to fix those big uh-ohs, stamping becomes a lot more relaxing and a little less stressful. Now, as I'm setting up placement, I realized that these two little twigs in the middle look a little too separated, and so I'm going to add just a little leaf in the middle just to bring that together so it looks more like a bush of greenery rather than two separate twigs that are the exact same thing. So once I finalize placement and I dry all the distress oxide off, I'm going to grab my Scotch ATG gun. Now this glue gun I've used for a little bit over a year now, and I've really come to enjoy it. It is a little bit hard to use at the beginning. It has a little bit of a learning curve, but after you understand how it works, it becomes very easy, and it's great for big pieces of paper like this. I'm going to start looking on where to put my date. I always want to keep a date on the page because in the future I want to go over these pages with my kids and grandkids and make sure I tell them the story of why that verse was important during that time and what it meant to me. So I decided I'm going to put the date on the post-it note to the side, and I'm going to grab my precision glue by Barely Art. This is a new glue to me. Lindsay at Lindsay Decor suggested it, and I love it so far. It comes with multiple size tips. I have personally only used the fine size tip so far, but it has worked awesome. Now, it does have one downside, which is also a reason why this glue is so awesome. This glue dries super fast, and that doesn't often happen with the liquid glue. Now, most of the time that's great, but sometimes if you're like gluing down letters and they're not in a straight line and you want to move them, this glue doesn't allow that much time to move anything. And so you definitely want to make sure that everything's lined up if you're doing that. But other than that, I find it really awesome because stuff doesn't wiggle and move on you if you by accident touch that piece of die cut or ephemera. Now to fill in that right hand corner, I am adding some of Felicity Jane's grid washi. I want to put that in 3 places on the page so that I can draw the eye in a triangle shape. So I'm putting one in the right hand corner, one in the upper right hand corner, and then I'm going to end up putting one under the florals to the left, but I'm putting it in a horizontal position because I don't want it to be too close to the grid paper that's on that branding strip. I want to add in a little bit more of that soft pink color, so I grab my Nuvo Vintage Drops. This is in the color Dusty Rose, and the Vintage Drops are a matte Nuvo drop. So instead of the regular Nuvo drop that dries glossy or clear, these will just dry flat matte color. And then after I do that, I'm going to grab some Hobby Lobby fabric and create my own fabric bow clip. Now I had a couple of you ask how I create my fabric bow clips. I actually go to Hobby Lobby, pick out some fabric, ask them to cut it to 1/8 of a yard, and I usually have enough to make a couple of bow clips. Now what I just did was I cut a slit on the end and then I tore it. I prefer torn edge, but you can also cut it. What I do is I slide it through the paper clip, and then I'm just going to tie it exactly how I tie my shoes, except I'm not going to do that first knot. I will try to do a slower version on Instagram, but all I do is just skip that knot part at the beginning, and then I just fidget with it, and then I'm going to fold it over and snip it to get those nice edges. I'll put the bow on my page, and that'll be it. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and follow me over on Instagram. Have a great day, guys!